If you're not sure what to build or what runes to go as AD carry in League of Legends in Season 13, then this is the video for you. Enjoy it. So maybe you're asking yourself, should I go Navori or IE second? And I think Navori is just so much better on champions that actually uses abilities a lot. I mean, kind of logical, right? So on champions like Kai'Sa, Xayah, Tristana and Severe, I would more often than not go Navori second. Especially on Kai'Sa and Xayah, I go Navori second on like 99% of the cases here. On Severe and Tristana, it's a bit more trickier. If you play, except maybe against like a squisher comp, you want IE to be able to kind of one-shot people with that IE passive, right? But if the fights are longer, if you play against tanks, I would always go just cracking into Navori, right? And then you go Dom's third and you just complete tank shredder with all your abilities up perma, right? So that is just the situational thing to think about when you're playing Tristana and Severe. So moving on to Caitlyn. This champ is really situational right now. You can go so many builds. I really like if you're playing against a lot of tanks, you just go the normal build, kind of cracking into PD. I think this build is really underrated, but I think people have been building Gale Force into Rapid Fire for so long that they don't realize that you can actually do damage on 2 items. So this is something I would really look out for if you're playing against tanks, but you're also not playing against poke bot lanes, because when you play against poke bot lanes like Varus and Karma, etc., you might want to opt into actually going shield bow on this champion. A bit lower DPS, I know, but if you don't need the Gale Force to dodge engage, you might as well go shield bow to survive lane easier and be able to snowball that lane easier, right? And if you do that, you would also take Alacrity in runes, not go bloodline. And then you would opt into either a seal item, like just going seal into IE, or you can also go BF into PD. I like this build way more, but make sure you get some AD in there before you finish your seal item, because if you just go shield bow into Phantom Dancer, for example, your DPS is a bit lackluster. So I would for sure get some AD in there before I finish my seal item. So moving on to Varus. This champ is really versatile at the moment. You can either go lethality if you're against long range, or if you're playing against like a poke bot lane like Caitlyn Karma or Caitlyn Lux, for example, and you go on it if you have a easier lane matchup, or if you also are playing against tanks or champions that you can actually hit, because Varus' range is what's hurting him a lot in the past. His range is really short. So for on it Varus, I would just build Shield Bow into Rage Blade into Wit's End if enemies has a lot of AP, or I would just go Doms or even BT if I don't need to go Doms and I just want more survivability, right? On lethality, however, I would just always like never go Eclipse on this champ unless you really need a passive to survive like all-ins, but more often than not it's more of your positioning that is lackluster then, I think, than that Eclipse passive saving you, because Prowlers and Duskblade just give you way better stats, and also the Mythic passive is just way better, especially on Prowlers. So Prowlers, I think, is for sure like the go-to item on this champion, the Mythic. And then something that's really important as well is not finishing Mana Mune until you have your tier fully stacked. So what I mean by that is that instead of going Warhammer after your Mythic is finished, you go Dirk instead. This is so much more spike damage, and you're just way stronger on 1.5 items, right? Then once you finish your, I usually go Ghostblade on this champion, a second item. Then you can either finish your Mana Mune, or if you're playing as heavy tanks, you just go Cerildas, and then you finish your tier, your Mana Mune as 4th item, and then you're really insane, right? But we need that Cerildas if you're going to want to be able to kill tanks in an NP team. And then you might say, why don't you go on it if you're playing against tanks? But sometimes you're playing as one tank, but you're also playing against poke matchups in bot lane that you cannot really auto-attack, which is why you want to go poke, but still get that Cerillas as 3rd, right? So moving on to Draven, right? I've seen a lot of builds on this champion. I've seen BT into Kraken if you're playing against poke, and then you go IE as 3rd. But I think if you're not playing against poke, I think going Jhin into either Dirk or BF preferably, if you have the gold for it, is just insanely good. Like this item, early item spike is just insane for Draven and synergize with him very well. After that, you finish your, after you go those items, Jhin and BF or Dirk, you finish your Reaver, and then you go into IE, and then it's just really situation, right? If you're playing against maybe poke on other champions in enemy team, you go BT. If you don't need that, you just go IE and you one-shot people literally. And then as for the Mythic, you can either go Gale Force if you really want to one-shot people from afar, or you can go Shield Bow if you need the survivability, right? So really situational Mythic for Draven right now. But this build, Jhin into Dirk or BF, is really insane. Like, don't sleep on this if you're playing Draven. So Zeri is pretty straightforward, right? You just go Shield Bow, and then you go either PD, or you go Runans if enemy has a lot of melee champions. you go IE third in like 9 out of 10 cases. Even if you're playing against tanks, I would say that IE still is so much better on Zeri. And then you just go Doms fourth, right, if you need to kill the tanks. And then if you, after that, it's really once again situation, right? You can literally optimize into going as Sonya's if you're playing against Vi and you know you need to dodge his ability somehow. Or you can go into BT if you just need to survive more. You know, the possibilities are endless here. Misfortune is really straightforward as well. You go Kraken or BT. If you go BT, if you need the poke to survive the poke, and then you're going to Kraken for maximum damage, and then go IE or Doms depending on who you need to kill in the enemy team. If you can one-shot people, go IE. If you need to kill tanks, go Doms, right? And then you just finish the other one as you forfeit them. So for Ezreal, I'm actually not going to talk about Ezreal because my dear good friend and streamer and Ezreal OTP Dragdar just recently made a video about what items to go on Ezreal. So I will link that video in the description, which you can watch. It's just like a 5-minute video. It goes really fast, but it explains really like in depth of when to build what on Ezreal right now and how to deal maximum damage. So for Twitch, this guy is pretty much staying similar. I think this champ is really weak in the meta, which is why I'm not gonna touch on him a lot. But you go Blade into Kraken, and then you go IE if you don't need attack speed with Runans. And then you just go, obviously, Doms if you need to kill tanks, right? Really straightforward, this champion. Then the Samira, also pretty straightforward. You go Dirk early. You really want this Dirk early. Unless you're playing against Poke once again and you afford a BF sword on your first base, then you definitely go for that and you go BT first item. But obviously, you want to finish your shield bow and then get collector if you're snowballed or if enemy team comes really squishy. But most of the time you just go shield bow into IE and then you go Doms into BT, and then you obviously you just one tap people, right? Samira, really strong and underrated pick in this meta, I think. So Ashe, I've pretty much only seen her as support for the last months, but I think if you do want to play her AD, I think on it is the way to go. I think you go Rageblade into PD and then with Send if enemy has a lot of AP. And that's pretty much it, right? That's 4th or 5th, you can really, it's really situational depending on what you or your team needs. Jhin, I think Jhin is still really weak in this patch, but this item change has kind of helped him a lot because now you can actually afford to go IE second instead of having to rush, like go rapid fire, which is just completely useless. So you go Gale Force into IE and then, or Collector if you like really snowball and enemy team is really squishy, and then you go IE third, but most of the time it's gonna be Gale Force first, IE second, and then either rapid fire third or Doms as your third. And then as 4th, you just finish the one that you didn't finish prior, right? So moving on to keystones, right, and runes in general. I think 9 out of 10 cases you're gonna go lethal tempo on pretty much any AD carry that you're playing right now. You can go fleet footwork if you really need to survive laning phase against like heavy poke type of champions, but I just think you lose out on so much DPS when you don't have lethal tempo that I think more often than not it's probably worth to go with anyways. But these are the two that you just keep in mind, right? I think you can go PTA on some champions, like I think Dragdar touched on this in his Ezreal video. If you're playing with like, you want to all in, if you play with like Leona or Nautilus or something, then go and press the attack on Ezreal is probably good. But on the rest of the champs, going lethal tempo is more often than not gonna be the play. Then you have a lot of options here actually. In this patch, since they buffed these two. Obviously, if you play a champ like Samira, you can go Triumph because you're gonna probably get a lot of kills. But if you're playing a champion that is going Navori, but is also really mana hungry, like Saya is a perfect example of this, and Kai'Sa as well, then going Presence of Mind is more often not gonna be key, right, to keep that mana uptake high. However, if you want to go a lifesteal item, like BT or Shield Bow as your first item, then going Overheal is really busted right now. It just gives you an insane amount of shield, and it's just like, you know, it's just really strong right now if you're going a lifesteal item first. So consider this a lot. That being said, if you do go a lifesteal item as well, you might as well not go Bloodline. I don't like this item when you already have Shield Bow or Bloodthirster, so then I would just opt for Alacrity, right? If you go something like this, then you can afford sometimes to go fleet if you really need it to survive, but it's really situational and not something I have seen or done myself in the last couple of weeks of playing anyways. But these items, if you go a lifesteal item, it's really insane for both your damage and also like your healing in lane is just really strong. And once again, you don't need Bloodline to survive lane phase like this. So yeah, moving on to secondary tree. I think when I'm recording this video, it's still patch 13.3, but I think they're releasing the next patch tomorrow, which someone in my chat actually told me that they're nerfing Treasure Hunter. I actually didn't know this, but they're nerfing this with like 100 gold. And I always went this on Kai'Sa, for example, because I would always get a lot of kills because you're playing so much kill aids and you can snowball hard. But I think moving on there, I might just go literally like Ultimate Hunter and keep the Taste of Blood. But something that is funny as well is that the secondary tree is really, really situational right now. You can do so many things with it. You can go this, right? I go this Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter on Saya, for example, because if you don't have it, Saya's ultimate is like 2-minute cooldown long. It's just Ultimate Hunter is so busted on her. And then if you're playing against like an all-in type of bot lane, right? Like Samira Rel or, you know, Nautilus or some, obviously, a lot of lanes where they just want to all-in you. Then going Bone Plate in second is really good and on a lot of champs. And then if you have like a shield support, you can go Revitalize. If you don't have that, you can just go Overgrowth, right? I don't really like Unflinching because the slow resist is nice and all, but if you get hit by CC, probably you're dead regardless, unless you have Cleanse. And then if you have Cleanse, Unflinching doesn't matter, right? So I would stay away from this in most cases and just go Overgrowth instead. This is if you're playing as all-in. This is if you're playing against Poke, right? So you go Second Wind, and then you can go Revitalize as well. And you know, so many options here. If you play against Poke bot lanes, however, as well, I think I would either go this, as I mentioned already, but I could also go just Magical Footwear and go Cookies, right? To make sure I can leave the lane. If enemy has like a lot of engage too, like maybe they have a Jarvan or a Malphite, for example, which you really need to flash, then I would just go Cookies and Cosmic in this case, right? And keep your flash up for as long as possible. But once again, there are so many things you can do in secondary tree in this patch, and I just love it. Like, there is just used to be like one tree where you would go permanently, you would go the same runes every game, and I'm just happy Riot finally added some things that actually makes it, you have to make a choice every game. That's what makes the game so exciting right now, I think. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'm MTest, I'm a former Challenger AD carry that played pro in the ERLs for 5 years. Now I do coaching and educational content about League of Legends. I also talk a lot about the mental aspects of the game on my Twitter. So if you want personalized coaching, don't hesitate to join my coaching Discord. I stream also on Twitch pretty much every day now, so if you want to either see me coach or do educational SoloQ content, you can find me live there. All my links will be in the description. Have a great day, guys, and thank you so much for watching.